Welcome back. This is a previously recorded short video about the Raven. Explained. A couple weeks ago, I took the opportunity to read from Edgar Allan Poe, a collection that I have, the poem The Raven, one of the most famous poems ever written in America. It's a great poem, and it's public domain, so there's no problem with me reading it uh, for the sake of the experiment. But let's take a moment and talk about the Raven. What does it mean? What's happening in this poem? My goal over the next couple of minutes is to kind of walk you through what's happening in the Raven. So let's start from the beginning. We have a guy, and we don't know his name, the narrator, sitting in his chamber, and he's not feeling so good. He seems really sad, melancholy. He misses somebody named Lenore. Now, we don't know who Lenore is. Perhaps Lenore was a loved one or a relative. Perhaps they left voluntarily. Perhaps they passed away. We don't quite know, but we get hints throughout the piece. Well, the narrator continues to sit and sulk, and then he hears a knocking on his door. He doesn't do anything. He's scared. He's fantasizing of all the things that could be at that door. Eventually, though, his heart grows stronger and he hesitates no longer. And he goes to the door. And as he's walking to the door, he says to the person or thing behind the door, Please forgive me. I was napping and I didn't hear you. But we all know he really wasn't napping. This is the first opportunity the narrator speaks, and he speaks something that is probably a lie. Anyway, he opens up that door, and what does he see? Nothing. Nothing is there. But he whispers, Lenore. He's still thinking about Lenore. Well, he spins back into his chamber. He's very, very agitated, very frightened, sits back down, and then another set of knocking. This one isn't at his door, but at his window. And he goes over and he opens up the window. And in flies the raven. And it flies over to the mantle and it sits on a bust, a little statue of Pallas, sits on top of that bust and just starts hanging out. And our narrator begins to talk to the bird. He begins asking it questions. What's your name? Why are you here? And the bird responds. Now, I don't know if you know what a raven sounds like, but here is a brief clip. Let's see what that's like. Now, ravens are really smart birds, but they don't really speak. They don't say things. But our narrator hears the word nevermore. And so this man in his room has a bird and he begins to scream at it. He is yelling at this bird. He takes a pillow and he throws the pillow at the bird. He continues to ask it questions and it continues to say, nevermore, is what he hears. And finally, we wrap up with our narrator giving up, accepting that this raven will likely stay in his home forever. And that is what takes place physically within the raven. This poem is amazing. It is so many layers, so many things to read and go, what does this mean? What is this happening here? The Plutonian shore, is this a reference to Hades and the underworld? Is this where Lenore is? All these questions about who or where Lenore went. But at the end of the day, we have a very disgruntled man screaming at a bird, hurling pillows at it, and then eventually deciding that might as well keep that bird around. And that is the breakdown of the Raven. If you want to hear the whole piece, I urge you to find a version of it online. It's free. You could get a book that has the Raven. It's a great poem. You could check out the short little podcast we did, audio only version of this little piece. It's interesting. It's a great poem. And as we get ready for October and Halloween, and I got my Halloween themed shirt hopefully you look at the raven a little bit differently. I know I did. And then I hit the button that stops it. That's the next part. I'm going to do that part now. Okay, we're done, right? Oh no, I didn't hit it.